Donald Trump is a racist, misogynistic, xenophobe. So how in the hell did he become the Republican nominee? Well, as it turns out, the problem isn't Trump. The problem is the Republican base. Now, while the media is busy scratching their heads trying to figure out how Trump won, real analysts have been looking at the base and realizing that they're all mini Donald Trumps. For more on this, let's go to Howard Nations. So, Howard, the most interesting thing about Donald Trump, again, is that a lot of the stories out there say nobody could have predicted this. Well, you really could have, if you look at the Republican base. I know the leadership in the Republican Party isn't standing behind him publicly, but I think those Republican voters, they know exactly what they're doing. What's your take on this?
Well, first of all, the Republican establishment and now the conservative right-wing pundit leadership is blaming Trump for negative messaging that their fear is going to damage the conservative movement. But my proposition is Trump is the next logical step for the Republican Party. He's a natural continuation of Republican political methods. They have no right to be shocked now or in the future because the Republicans created Trumpenstein and now they can't control him. You remember back when Trump, if you look back over the history, he first came to any position in politics as the birther, the leader of the birther movement. Remember when he said, boy, you can't believe what my investigators have found out in Hawaii. It's just going to blow everything up. Obama let him get way out on that limb, then he produced his birth certificate. Now Trump refuses to even discuss that topic.
And what's interesting too is that this is a guy who so desperately wanted to try to discredit Obama, saying he's not releasing his birth certificate, yet Trump won't even give us tax returns because, as we've seen from the few that were released, a decade or two ago, the man doesn't pay any taxes. And so he's the real candidate with something to hide. And right now, he has put himself kind of, I guess, in this awkward position with his response to the Orlando shooting, where he wants to be, this super radical. But at this point, the Republicans may not be buying that.
Well, if you follow him through, as Trump the candidate, he opened his campaign with racist attacks on Mexicans, followed by a ban on Muslims, followed by attacks on the press, followed by ad hominem attacks on his 16 opponents. His Republican establishment's $100 million fair-haired lad, Jeb Bush, said recently, I can't believe Trump won with a campaign of slurs and insults. Now, Trump is a presumptive nominee. They said, oh, it's okay. He'll become more presidential as we swing towards the general election. In fact, he's gotten worse. The establishment endorsed him. The primary voters loved him. So why should he change? So, in fact, he doubled down. Now, as the leader of the Republican Party, he made racial attacks on a federal judge. And then post-Orlando, it didn't fit that this shooter was born in Queens, the same place as Trump. So he came out and said, well, the shooter was an Afghan. And then he made an attack on Hillary about she's going to take away your guns. As a result, AR-15 sales they flying off the shelf. It's one of the ironies is that assault weapon massacres lead to the sale of more assault weapons. And it's big lies like Trump's that caused that. What Trump said immediately after Orlando, he told the biggest lie. He said, Hillary will take away your guns. She wants to abolish the Second Amendment. He either doesn't understand how the amending of the Constitution works, or he hopes that his followers are too stupid to understand that the president can't abolish any part of the Constitution. But in fact, Hillary's position is she wants a ban of assault weapons, a position that's supported heavily by law enforcement.
Well, and it's interesting, too. I mean, maybe off topic, but we did have an assault weapons ban. Bill Clinton signed it into law up until it expired. Bush decided not to renew it. So, yes, this country has been without assault weapons available for commercial purpose. And, we still did have some massacres there, but it wasn't 133 in 164 days. That absolutely didn't happen. But, back to this issue, you brought up the fact that Trump comes out after this shooting and he says the shooter is this Afghan. He's creating fear. And those Republican voters, the base, the people that put him in the position that he is in, that gets them riled up because they love to be afraid. They absolutely love it. And they're always looking for the big, strong, tough guy superhero to come in and save them. And somehow they think that that person is Donald Trump. He's a big, tough guy with his tiny little hands. That still doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the exploitation of fear is what kept Bush and Cheney in the White House for 8 years. So he thinks it worked for them. Why can't it work for me? But the lowest point of Trump's ascent into the muck and mire of the dirtiest possible politics came this week when post-Orlando innuendo that Obama supports the Muslim terrorist attack on America. That's a low point even by Republican standards. Obama has killed more Muslim terrorists than any political leader in the world, including a terrorist by the name of Osama bin Laden, who managed to elude Bush and Cheney for all those years. But Trump, despite all these statements, impugning the integrity, even the citizenship, the loyalty to America of the President of the United States, Trump still has the endorsement of Speaker Ryan. He has the endorsement and the support of the Republican candidates who are seeking re-election to the United States Senate. He has the endorsement of the Republican establishment and the party. They're lining up behind him. Where he's losing people is with the pundits like Billy Crystal at the Weekly Standard, the conservatives, Jonah Goldberg at National Review, Eric Erickson. They're disavowing Trump because they fear backlash against the conservatives. You know, Billy Crystal tried to get a third-party candidate to run against him. But what they have to understand, if you look at the history, Trump is their creation.
He absolutely is. You know, this is a result of all the hatred that was drummed up when they created the Tea Party. Because it was a lot of, where's the birth certificate? It was people complaining about taxes, holding up signs that would say, keep the government out of my Medicare. Yeah. It was it was pure stupidity, and they exploited these people, exploited their fears of undocumented immigrants and, Islamic terrorists. And that is what happened. Trump is the end result. He's not the cause of any of this that we see today. He's the end result. And those voters, they're still on that Tea Party high. They love this. Yeah. And unfortunately, it has put some of these, people who we usually attack on this show, it's put them in the position of saying, oh, well, we didn't mean to do this. We don't want to be this crazy. We just don't want regulations. And so it's ironic, it's sad, and it's terrifying for America.
Yeah, but those same people, even before the Tea Party, the Republicans spent decades tracing back to the Southern strategy of Lee Atwater with Richard Nixon, were using racist appeals, ad hominem attacks on opponents, and dirty political tricks to gain and hold power. It wasn't Donald Trump, but the Republican leadership that wasted months of congressional time perpetuating the Benghazi myth to head off Hillary's presidential candidacy. It wasn't Trump who conducted phony House investigations of Planned Parenthood to appeal to the base. It was the Republican establishment and conservatives, another wasted, phony investigation. It wasn't Trump who dismantled public education. It was elected Republicans. Most importantly, it wasn't Trump who for years has crusaded against the rights of Americans to vote if they're minorities or students or any other demographic likely to vote Democratic. It was the RNC and the Republican establishment and the conservative wing, and it continues today even as we speak.
That may be one of the most important points that anyone has ever said on this program. That whole list of things that the Republicans that are currently in office, the things they did, the things they have done, the things they want to do, that wasn't Donald Trump. He is the result of getting people upset about these phony scandals. I mean, Benghazi, how many hearings have we had on that? Repealing Obamacare, how many hundreds of times have they tried to do that for absolutely no reason other than spite? That is what Republicans rule with today, is nothing but spite and contempt for a black man in the White House or a woman running for president. It's all about spite and anger. They don't want to see that. They want a white guy that looks like them, that loves business, that hates regulations, that has a thing against, black people or Latinos. But The world has changed, and it's left these Republicans behind, and that's why they cling to an authoritarian leader like Donald Trump.
It also wasn't Trump that has steadily attacked the civil justice system and the rights of individual citizens to seek justice against corporations. It's the Republican Party leaders who have and continue to support tort reform. If a president could abolish a constitutional provision, the Seventh Amendment civil right to trial by jury in a civil case would have died during the Bush-Cheney administration.
Well, I think it's all very fascinating, because when you have these Republican leaders, like you discussed earlier, that still stand by Trump in spite of the racism, it's because they know that they're going to have to do it if they want to get the votes of the base at this point. If they disavow Donald Trump, when those people go to the polls, they're going to vote him out, because there's just as much anti-establishment anger among Republicans, if not more so, than there was on the Democratic side. Because the problem with the Republican establishment, according to Republican voters, is that, yes, they are too in favor of big business. They're too willing to let Obama do whatever, versus the Democrats who say, look, the establishment's too far to the right, come back to the left and you have our support. Republicans are at this point, the base, the ones who support Trump, they're irrational, they're illogical. There's no talking sense into them, and that is why Trump is the Republican nominee as of today.
When Republicans complain that Trump is ruining the party, they need to re-examine their own recent history. Trump is the perfect creation and embodiment of Republican politics since Nixon and Lee Atwater, since they started the party down this dark path. So my question for the Republican Party after this election is, other than that, Dr. Frankenstein, how'd you enjoy the election?
Fantastic. Howard, I appreciate talking with you as always. Wonderful, wonderful stuff here. We'll keep at it till the election. We've got to do what we've got to do to prevent Donald Trump from making it to the White House. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Farron.